Hello and welcome to Toph Talk. This is the girl Toph that recently came out in the Avatar Commander set, and I think it's overlooked as a commander compared to its Naya counterpart. Toph Greatest Earthbender is a 4-mana 3/3 human ally that makes a 4/4 double striker on the first cast. Getting 2 creatures for the price of 1 is always a strong effect, I feel, and the earthbending aspect makes it even more interesting. First of all, we can't talk about a Toph deck without mentioning its most important interaction. Did you know a Toph Greatest Earthbender has a secret one-shot combo with Inkmoth Nexus? When Inkmoth Nexus is on the field and you earthbend it with Toph, it becomes a 4/4 double striker, yeah? But if you then pay 1 to activate Inkmoth Nexus's ability, turn it into a 1/1 with flying and infect, you suddenly have a 5/5 double strike flying infect creature that'll instantly give your opponent 10 points of counters. So cool, right? But if you're trying to pull this combo off at instant speed, you'll need to have 6 total mana available, since you need 1 extra to activate Inkmoth Nexus's ability, and you still have to swing. There are certain exceptions to this, like if you have a way to keep your lands vigilance, but like generally 6 mana is where you want to be at. Let's talk a little bit more about the deck's general playstyle, since this is basically a combo deck. You want to focus on ramping as fast as you can while pulling Inkmoth Nexus out of your deck until you hit 6 mana and can play Toph to get the combo out. The deck is filled with quite literally every turn 1 ramp option ever, and is usually the best play, and there's really only one exception to this rule. If you can't find Inkmoth Nexus, remember that it's really okay to still just hit your opponent in the face. Just remember that if you're playing Toph, it's best to have 5 mana open, 4 to cast Toph herself, and an open land to earthbend, and then subsequently swing with. As you head into the mid and late game, if you haven't already beat your opponent to death, don't be afraid to sacrifice Toph. Either it's a chump blocker or to something like broadside bombardiers. This is because Toph is built to pay command tax. Toph's very first line of text reads, when Toph enters Earthbend X, where X is the amount of mana spent to cast her. So, if you're spending 6 mana on her, 4 base, plus 2 in tax, she'll make a 6/6 double strike instead. Okay, now here is a look at the deck list. You can find the Moxfield link to this deck list in the subscription, and I know a lot of people who are either newer to Brawl or have their wildcards spread into other formats might not have all the rares and mythics needed to build this specific version. So I've included a few cheaper alternatives to a lot of the cards in this list on the Moxfield version. But for now, let's just get into this current list. Basically, turn 1, you've got all your ramp and your cheap removal. And you want to ramp up to 5 mana as fast as possible, while either hitting your opponent in the face really hard, or pulling out Inkmoth Nexus out of your deck. Either or both. But yeah, the deck is filled with a lot of tutors to pull Inkmoth Nexus. I'm a really big fan of Vibrance, because it's one of the newer cards that came out in Lorwyn, and it can either be removal or a tutor, so I think it's really nice in this deck. There's also a lot of ways to give your lands trample, because your 4/4 double strike is really sad when it hits it to like your opponent's 1/1 cat token, so there's trample in the deck to compensate for that. And obviously, you can't talk about this deck without looking at its mildly crazy land base. Obviously, you've got all your fetches, and I've included a large variety of creature lands for you to animate, because the buff with Toph will stack. They'll get the 4 counters in power and toughness while also having their own stat line. Like if you turn the Lair of the Hydra into a 2/2, it'll be a 6/6 double strike, so on and so forth. But yeah, there's a few nice options here. Obviously, Inkmoth Nexus, aka like a big reason to play this deck, is the best option. But other than that, Lair of the Hydra is really solid. It can get real big. You also have Restless Ridgeline, which becomes a 3/4, so with Toph, that is a 7/8, and it'll untap another attacking creature and give it +2/+0. So it's really solid as an aggro option, other than the fact that it comes in tap and you kind of need a ridiculous amount of mana to activate it, but I still think it's very solid. Other than that, you have Inkmoth Nexus's lesser alternative, Blinkmoth Nexus. It doesn't have Infect, therefore it does not combo. Be very careful to pull the right card when you're tutoring, but I have messed up before. You also have Mutable, which gives you an extra toughness, which is for like a pretty cheap cost. And yeah, other than that, we just have your typical shock lands, surveil lands, fetch lands, dual lands. A lot of these lands are replaceable. Don't feel obligated to run all of these. Obviously, Inkmoth Nexus is the most important one, and maybe not one a lot of people have, but I promise spending a mythic on it is worth it. The combo is so much fun. Other than that, replace it with whatever lands you have that will fix your mana base. As long as you can make it work, I promise it will be okay. Okay, now I guess we can move on to some gameplay in queue and showcase a little bit about how the deck plays. Okay, this is now live Krabby, and we're just gonna take the deck into queue and see how it goes. I'd also like to see if I can get some recordings of a few games against League deck, which I'll get into later, but I think it will be useful to showcase why certain cards are in this deck. Splinter. It's interesting, also kind of annoying. I like the curve. The curve curves in a way that I like. I think I'm okay with this. Obviously turn 1 bird, but I'm thinking turn 2 whether I just like don't invest into my own gameplay instead of playing Sylvan Scrying Expedition map, I just go and hold up Endurance as a blocker. Okay, the Just Pass is mildly concerning. I feel like I'm about to get something flashed in on my ass, but like, whatever. Surely it's fine. Do I just play this? I'm just gonna do it. Don't think too much about what your opponent's doing, just play the game, and we'll see. I don't know if I want to pull this Inkmoth now. I might just pull it with the other one and just go fetch here for the Ice Tail too. Yeah. I feel like pulling Inkmoth kind of signifies my game plan. I don't want it to be too obvious. Okay, this is also very suspicious, but yeah, sure. There's no blue, so the only counterspell they could have is Reprieve or Mana Tide. So I think this Ice Pill is developing. I'm expecting like a flash creature, like a Thalia or something like that. Something along those lines. I don't know. The fact that my opponent has played nothing is kind of sketching me out. Solve the trigger. I still dies? Yeah. Okay. It's fine. Okay, I think we tutor Surveil Land here, and then we're gonna just pass, hold up Endurance / Entish Restoration, and Crafty Ink Moth at instant speed to try to catch them off guard. I'm hoping they tap out on this next turn that they have. Kinda nice. I kinda like the keep. If I play the Renus, if I still hold of this yes. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, there's an interesting interaction with earthbending and cards like Disciple of Frailties, because the creature is the front side. So if you earthbend it, and then it gets returned to the battlefield through dying or getting exiled, it will come back on the flip side through 3 creature, which I think is pretty interesting. Letting this happen, huh? I'm expecting removal for endurance here. Yeah. Okay. There's something in the yard, so I'm chill with letting this hit. I'd like them to use this last 1 mana, but okay, hopefully no Source of Plowshares or Fatal Push or Dismember. That would be bad, but like, you just gotta shoot your shot, man. Alright. Okay. Looks like they didn't have any removal. Good stuff! That's 1 game in. Okay, these next 2 games are Brawl League style games. For those of you confused, the Brawl League is a seasonal competition run on the Brawl Hub Discord server. It lasts 4 weeks and culminates in a top 8 tournament. The Brawl League uses a custom ban list and is probably the best place to play competitive Brawl. All the decks I make follow league rules, although they of course still play great in queue. I'm playing against a very good friend of mine here, only at Target, who also happens to help run the Brawl League. He's also a really great Brawl player, so be prepared to see some really sweaty gameplay from the both of us. Alright, here we go. Target is playing Lumra, Bella of the Woods, which is a mono-green land-based combo deck. And honestly, a deck I'm not smart enough to play. Anyway, starting off, I've got a really solid starting hand because I'm on the draw and I have a Gemstone Caverns, which essentially means I go first instead of him. So I'm just gonna get this out of the way, and I choose to exile Exploration here because I don't think I'll have enough lands to need it. And the Birds is actually a really solid draw here because it enables me to ramp, in addition to putting a Surveil Land on the board, which will help me to top my deck a little bit more. I decided to keep this Utopia Sprawl on top, because we do have the Forest to manage it, and it is basically free mana. But Target actually freaks out here and makes me shuffle my deck for kind of no reason, because he forgot that he cannot pull a land himself off of Ghost Quarter. He's trying to delay me from playing my Toph, but that's not how Ghost Quarter works. It is not a sure mine. So I draw the Once Upon a Time, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to pay 3 life and play Toph here. Obviously, earthbending a tap land is like kind of not great. But I think putting more pressure on the board is what we want to be doing right now. And then he just played this Sunscorched Desert, which is one of his combo pieces, so I'm a little worried, but I'm thinking that I still have time. The Lotus Cobra is also a problem, because it just turns all of his lands into 2 mana instead of the 1. And off the Lumber trigger, from bringing a bunch of lands back, he also gets a lot of mana from that. I am so tempted to take this Badger Mole Cub here, but I resist. And I'm like, no, I need this land. And that's what I end up playing. And we're just going to go into the Terrapath Intimidator here. This is like a pretty decent aggro card. I'm a pretty big fan of it, because your opponent can either choose to give you ramp, which is good to have in this deck, or give you a 2 mana 4/3. Now we're just going to full swing here to put on the pressure, hopefully before he does anything too crazy. And to my dismay, this guy plays a fetch, which doesn't give him enough mana for Lumra, but it is a lot of mana off the Lotus Cobra. I think about whether I want to Endurance in response to the Tortoise here, but he only pulls 1 land, and it's just the Close Quarter, so I just let him have it. At this point, he's at 13 life, and I'm really just trying to hit him down before, like, terrible bad things happen. Oh, there's actually... When I put this Gemrazer into the deck, I assumed that it would share its toughness with the land. But that's actually not how this ends up. The land still stays a 0/0, even if I mutate on top of it because of layers or something. Either way, it's still a decent card in the deck, as it gives the land trample and also lets you destroy an artifact or enchantment on the mutate. So I think it's pretty nifty. And also, you can see something pretty cool happen up next with this interaction when he plays his commander. So Lumber comes out. I debate on whether to Endurance, and I think about this real hard, but I let this true resolve, and I probably should have Enduranced. I was thinking there was only 1 land in his yard, so I would just let it happen, but I definitely shouldn't have. Also, he hits 3 out of the 4 lands off this mill 4, which is pretty bad for me. But yeah, this turn ends up being pretty unfortunate for me. He kind of stabilizes here, and it's going to be really hard for me to get in any damage from this point onwards with the ginormous 8/8 Reach Vigilancer in the way. To make things worse, he also fights my 4/4. And you can see the really cool thing happen here. Disciple of Freyalise comes back on the front side of the Earthbended land, and the Gemrazer also comes back because it was mutated onto it. So I got 2 creatures back. So it could have been worse. It could have been worse. At the same time, I'm really wondering on how to get through to this Lumra. And honestly, I probably should have just swung this turn to force him to sack the Lotus Cobra, and it was a mistake not to. Even though I would have lost a swinger along the way, I think it would have been worth it. Anyway, Spelunking is one of the combo pieces in this deck because it enables the lands that you pull back with Lemra to come in untapped, which leads to infinite mana damage draw combos that are pretty nasty. This Analyze the Pollen is also really unfortunate because it allows him to tutor for the combo piece that he needs. If I had Endurance prior to this, because Analyze the Pollen is sorcery speed, I could have stopped this. But because of this, I cannot. And he's going to pull the Sylvan Safekeeper so he can sack all his lands. When he hits 0 lands, then Lumber will be a 0/0 and die. And then you can put Lumber back to the command zone and then replay it. I think that's how it works. The combo is convoluted. Anyway, he's also kind of not able to win here though, because I've hit him so low that he cannot sack both of these fetches to have enough mana to replay the Lumber after sacking all of his lands. Not to mention, he knows I have the Endurance held up to tuck his lands back if he happens to sack all of them. So I'm thinking I'm kind of okay here. And then he plays this Kozilek's command, and this is really bad for me. For one, I lose the Ashaya, but like the worst part is the 5/0/1 tokens he gets out of this. Even though I have a trampler, I only have one, which basically means it's going to be like nigh impossible for me to get through this now, even though he's only at 1 life. And then Lumber hits me for 10. We have Inkmoth here, but Lumber does have reach, so therefore, even with the Inkmoth, I cannot necessarily get through. So I just decide to play Halfling and pass, and maybe Worldly Tutor for something that does direct damage like Broadside Bombardiers or Pyroglyph, but then target tells me that he's top deck in Emrakul. So even though I go for this Endurance to try to stop him, it does not work. And I basically lose the game here. I still go for the Worldly Tutor, and I think really hard about like what to pull, and I end up on like Screaming Nemesis because it's the thing he can use least to like sabotage me, I guess. But yeah, he's going to animate my Blinkmoth here, and then kill both my Gemrazer and my Inkmoth Nexus while he has control of my turn. And at this point, I kind of feel like I'm out of options. Screaming Nemesis would usually win here, but since the Aldrazis are 0/1s, they don't deal any damage to it. Therefore, I don't have a way to find lethal, and I concede. Alright, now we're up to game 2. This is against Bruce Timna, the Mardu partners, which is probably one of the strongest aggressive mid-range decks right now. He starts off really strong and plays Ragavan, which is very scary, but thankfully I also top deck the Bull at the same time, and so it's not the end of the world. Or else I would have probably been screwed here without this Bull top deck. And then he's just going to play this Moon Shadow. He's trying to get some power onto the battlefield to hit me. So I'm just going to Farseek here for the Surveil land to hopefully ramp into the Ice Till. And hopefully he doesn't hit me too hard at the same time. He just cracks this fetch to put a counter on the Moon Shadow and then plays Timna to draw a card off of it, which is fine for me because I don't have to take too much damage. I draw the Disciple of Freyalise here, and I decide to play it for 3 life instead of playing the Inkmoth to keep my game plan hidden for a little longer, to hopefully do it all on the same turn. And I'm hoping Ice Till buys me some time here, but unfortunately he just straight up goes Fire Slices it for 3 mana. I'm hoping, since I am at 6 mana here and he only has 1 mana open, I can just get the one-shot combo off with Inkmoth Nexus and Toph. Obviously it's not ideal that he still has 1 mana open, but also can't really be helped, and I kind of just gotta shoot my shot. So I play this Inkmoth Nexus, and then I play this Toph, animate my Inkmoth Nexus, activate the ability, so I'm tapped out, and then he Lightning Bolts Toph. So I only get 5 poison counters out of this thing, instead of it just being lethal flat out, which is really unfortunate. I'm still hoping that he maybe doesn't have a flyer or anything and I can sneak in another 5 damage, but he ends up playing this Detective Phoenix, which is pretty annoying for me, as I now don't have a way to get Inkmoth through. And I'm also getting pretty worried about my life total here, as I'm running like very, very low. So I think really hard here. I decided to tap down the Inkmoth Nexus to net as much mana from Nissa as possible. Although I do tap incorrectly here and accidentally add a red. So I can still play everything out of my hand, but I'm forced to tap the land I animated with Nissa for it. So I lose out on one blocker. And then I pass and kind of just hope that I can block this, live the turn, and then draw removal for the Texas Phoenix to swing for lethal. But he ends up prismatic ending my bird, so I only have 2 blockers, and then he plays Tajik, and that's enough damage for lethal. So he swings lethal, and I lose there. So kind of just really unfortunate here. If I had drawn any piece of removal for this Detective's Phoenix whatsoever, could have just been like any sort of removal that dealt 2 damage to this bird. But yeah, that's just how it works. And Bruce Turner ramps really fast. Alright, that's it for Toph. If you're interested in playing this deck, check out the video description for the Moxfield link and some additional info I couldn't fit into the video. Also, if you're a big fan of Brawl and want to play it more competitively, consider joining the Brawl Hub Discord. It's a great place if you want to get better at Brawl and obtain a better grasp on the current meta. And please subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more deck yap sessions in the future. Thank you for watching!